Welcome back to the Wall Street Podcast. Today, we're tackling a really fundamental question in social science. Does a child's neighborhood, does where they grow up, causally impact their adult outcomes? Or is the effect we see mostly down to, well, family characteristics? This discussion pulls from recent research and a notable Wall Street Journal opinion piece. I'll be arguing for the significant direct causal impact of the neighborhood itself.
And I'll be taking the perspective that family characteristics are really the predominant factor, and that the neighborhood's role, while present, is often perhaps overestimated or misunderstood.
Okay, so my stance is heavily influenced by that landmark 2018 study. You know, the one by Roz Chetty and Nathaniel Hendren out of Harvard. They used this massive IRS data set looking at millions of people from, I think, 1980 to 2012. And their big finding was this direct causal link between the quality of a childhood neighborhood and adult earnings. They tracked families who moved, which let them, try to isolate the neighborhood effect from pre-existing family stuff. And this wasn't just academic. It led to, real policy action, like that $50 million congressional project and relocation programs in over 20 cities trying to move low-income families to what they call high-opportunity neighborhoods. Places with better schools, less crime. It really shows a belief in using the environment as leverage.
Right, and I think the Chetty-Hendren work is, it's certainly significant, but I approach this a bit differently. This idea that your zip code is destiny. Well, I think it often overestimates the neighborhood's direct causal power. It risks confusing correlation with causation. For instance, our own research from 2022, using very detailed longitudinal data from Denmark, points towards something else. Perceived neighborhood effects seem to be largely driven by what we call self-sorting.
Self-sorting?
Yeah, essentially families who are already more affluent, more educated, with, perhaps higher levels of parental engagement, they actively choose to live in areas that already offer better amenities, schools, safety, and so on. So what our research suggests is that this exposure to good neighborhoods might actually be more of an indicator of that existing family quality and parental concern, rather than the neighborhood independently causing the better outcomes, separate from the family dynamics.
I see why you'd emphasize the sorting aspect. But let me push back a bit. The strength of the Chetty-Hendren study, particularly how they looked at kids whose families moved when they were different ages, was precisely in trying to disentangle that. They argued they could isolate the neighborhood's influence from those inherent family traits. Their results suggested that every extra year spent in a better neighborhood boosted a child's future earnings by a measurable amount. So for me, that points beyond just correlation. It suggests tangible benefits from the environment itself. Better schools, sure, but also safer streets, positive peer influences, things that offer advantages beyond what the family alone provides. And the fact that these findings did lead to major relocation policies, that signals a strong policy belief that changing the external environment can genuinely improve opportunities, regardless of the family's starting point.
Okay, but I'm sorry, I just don't think the relocation policies alone are the silver bullet. If we look back at the Moving to Opportunity experiment, the MTO study from the 1990s here in the U.S., that program literally moved thousands of low-income families to lower poverty areas. But the results? Honestly, they were pretty limited in terms of boosting adult employment or improving educational outcomes for the parents and older kids who moved.
There were some effects for younger children, though, weren't there?
There were some modest positive effects for the very young children, yes, but the overall impact wasn't nearly as dramatic as perhaps one might expect, based solely on the Chetty-Hendren results, especially for older kids and adults. And what that suggests to me is that simply changing an address, it isn't enough if you don't also address or account for family engagement and parental investment. These family factors, the resources they provide, their active involvement, they seem to be the primary drivers, often overlooked. Moving house doesn't automatically change those core family dynamics or suddenly increase parental capacity.
That's an interesting point about MTO, though I might frame its implications a bit differently. Look, the very fact that families persistently try to get into desirable neighborhoods, even the ones you describe as self-sorting, that to me underlines the perceived and likely real value these places offer. They function as resource hubs, conferring advantages, Whether a family sorts itself or gets help relocating, the action itself is a recognition that these neighborhoods offer something valuable beyond the family unit. People want homes near good schools or in safe areas, not just to signal their own quality, but because they want access to those benefits. So policy absolutely can, and I think should, support access to that value either by helping people move or by investing to improve the neighborhoods where they already live. The desire for a better neighborhood isn't trivial. It's based on a widely understood reality of unequal opportunity.
That's a compelling way to put it, but let me offer another angle. Have you considered that advantaged families don't just choose good neighborhoods? They often actively create or maintain them. Think about it. These families are often highly invested. They boost the PTA, they advocate for local services, they build strong peer networks, they volunteer, they pour social capital into the community. So the quality of a neighborhood isn't just some external factor. It often reflects the cumulative investment of its residents. If that's the case, then perhaps interventions should focus more on supporting those foundational family behaviors, empowering parents and strengthening family resources, because the neighborhood quality might actually be an outcome of family strength, not just an input that can be easily changed by relocation alone.
Well, the weight of the evidence, particularly from these large-scale data analyses, it still strongly suggests to me that improving neighborhood quality and access is a vital, direct strategy for helping kids and influencing their outcomes later in life. It remains a powerful policy lever.
And I would maintain that really understanding the intricate role of family characteristics, parental investment, that's paramount. Neighborhoods matter, yes, but they often reflect these underlying family strengths. So interventions focusing on empowering families directly seem to me like the path to more effective and sustainable results.
It's clearly a complex interplay, isn't it, between the environment and individual development, which really highlights why we need these different perspectives to get a full picture.
Absolutely. And there's certainly a great deal more to unpack within this fascinating and really critical research.